99.9% of the ballots counted, candidates Sebastián Sichel, Ramirez and Gabriel Boric will run for the presidency of the country in November elections. Hundreds of people have died and many others are still missing in Europe's recent floods. At least 23 people have been killed by landslides in India's most populous city, Mumbai. Hello, welcome to TeleSUR English. I am Denise Herrera and this is on the South. In Chile, where 99.9% of the table is crowded, candidates Sebastián Sichel, Ramirez and Gabriel Boric will run for the presidency of the country in the November elections. The presidential pre-candidate for the social conference, Gabriel Boric, obtained more than a million votes, obtaining what represented 60.4% of the votes or primary votes of the left coalition, approval of the dignity elections resulting, while the independent presidential pre-candidate Sebastián Sichel became the flag of the Chilean government coalition Vamos after obtaining more than 600,000 votes, representing 49% of the votes within the primary right. It is necessary that in total more than 1,748,000 people voted in the primaries of the left islands, while more than 1,342,000 people participated in the primaries of right coalitions. And we begin also in Cuba, where thousands of government and Communist Party supporters have taken to the streets across the country to defend the democracy of the support of the political model on the Caribbean nation. President Miguel Díaz-Canel and the Cuban leader have also joined the demonstration in the capital Havana on Saturday, where thousands of participants, mostly young, emphasized the role of the United States actions and the harsh economic restrictions which have caused the worst crisis on the island in decades.
These riots, like last Sunday's events, happen when weak-minded people let themselves be influenced, so we are here to show that this is not the Cuban youth. Cuban youth think a little more, that's why I'm here.
In Mexico, a mass rally was held outside the Cuban embassy in capital Mexico City to support the political stability of Cuba, and they rejected the U.S. blockade against the Caribbean nation.
Our support is more for the revolution. We know that there are shortages of medicine and food in various parts of the country, but this is thanks to the blockade that the United States has maintained against Cuba.
Since the triumph of the Cuban Revolution, I think it has shown us that everything Cuba has done has been for the benefit of humanity and the people who need it, and the Cuban medical brigades are proof of that.
The Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has announced terrorist groups financed by former Venezuelan politicians and supported by the U.S. and Colombian governments who have plans to assassinate him.
We have defeated the Bogota Axis, Miami, Madrid in one of their plans. They bet. There is evidence that this terrorist group is politically supported by a group of former members, by a group of right-wing politicians, and financed from Bogota, from Miami, from Madrid, directed through telephone system to attack, kill. They call it that the party started. The party in Caracas has already been known. Part had plans to assassinate me. How can you call criminals of this type who put their snipers to shoot at the highway, cars that were passing and killed taxi drivers and innocent people who were passing by the highway Caracas-La Guaira, the Cementerio address, the Paraíso address? As you can call people like this who had groups ready to set fire and attack the city, have only one qualification: murderers and terrorists, and you gave him a great defeat. Congratulations on his rise and continue in combat.
The interim Prime Minister of Haiti, Claude Joseph, has announced attempts to divert the attention on investigation of the assassination of the President Jovenel Moïse. Joseph said that there are many clues about the assassination of the president and that investigations are still underway to expose the main person behind the murder. He added that the security forces will not stop working to bring those responsible to justice. Following the assassination last week, the interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph declared himself in charge and said the country will be under a temporary state of siege. And Haiti has started a general vaccine rollout on Saturday after health workers and senior citizens were vaccinated a day before. Hospital University of Peace is heading the vaccination campaign under the supervision of Haiti's health ministry. Early this week, Haiti received the first modern vaccine batch as part of the U.S. donations to the COVAX program. Haiti was reported more than 300 confirmed coronavirus cases and more than 480 deaths, and the biggest wave of the COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began.
Yes, I see that we have started well. We have made awareness where we the staff and went to the clinics not associated with a hospital to explain what the disease is and how to protect patients against it.
Well, take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. In Germany, rescue workers have toiled to clean up the damage laid by water on Saturday, as the death toll from flooding in Western Europe rose above 180. Police said that more than 90 people have died in Western Germany's Wieler County and one of the worst hit areas, and more casualties are feared. Another 43 people were confirmed in neighborhood North Rhineland, Palestine state, Germany's most populous.
In the background, we are hearing trucks being pulled out of the water. 28 vehicles have been reported here that were underwater, though in the meantime the water went down a bit. We don't know if there are any persons inside those cars, but we hope that everyone managed to get out.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel has expressed horror at the surreal devastation of floods as she visited the area southwestern Germany. She also called for the acceleration of the fight against climate change.
I have come here today and especially to Schultz with the Prime Minister to make it clear that we on a federal side naturally want to get a real picture of the shell assay, surreal, ghastly situation. This summer, with all the events we are experiencing in Germany, as well as the precipitation we are currently experiencing, show, if you believe the science, which I do, that it has something to do with the climate change. There are also very interesting explanatory models that describe why such cases of concentrated rain in one place occur, and that means we have to do even more.
Meanwhile, thousands of residents of affected areas of southern Netherlands have been allowed to return home on Saturday morning. After being evacuated to the desert flooding, Prime Minister Mark Rutte's government has declared the flooding state of emergency, opening up national funds for those affected.
The entire basement was flooded, and the damage is probably in the tens of thousands of euros. Apart from the emotional value, which I find more important, magazines, radio bulletins from 1960 until 1997 all vanished.
At least 23 people have been killed by landslide in India's most populous city, Mumbai. The Indian National Disaster Response Force said 17 of the deceased were killed in the coastal Mahul area when a landslide caused wall to collapse on several homes. Rescue workers were still searching for more victims. Several others have sustained injuries and have been taken to a local hospital. Mumbai and its surrounding suburbs have been pumped by the monsoon rain since Saturday.
A rescue and relief operation is underway. The National Disaster Response Force team is also at the site. We will complete the rescue operation soon.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets in Paris to protest French President Emmanuel Macron's plans to require a COVID-19 vaccine health pass. President Macron said this week that vaccine health passes will be required for entry to most public places and that all healthcare workers must be fully inoculated, sparking a rush to book appointments for the job. The new measures come as several European nations battle recent cases blamed in part of the highly transmissible Delta variant. France said Saturday it will require people not fully vaccinated but arriving from some European countries to show a negative COVID-19 test taken within the previous 24 hours.
I ask that people be given the freedom to choose whether or not they want to be vaccinated. No more and no less. A return to something that is constitutional. I am not opposed to the vaccine. If people want to get vaccinated, great.
I really feel like we are starting to infringe on everyone's freedom. I don't think we should have two opposite groups, the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated. I think it's up to each person to do what they want to do.
Meanwhile, the UK government has announced that people arriving from France must self-isolate for 10 days on entering Britain, even if they are fully vaccinated. Britain reversed a plan to ease travel restrictions on France just 2 days after they were due to start. Citing concerns about a new variant of the coronavirus, the move comes despite the fact that France currently has lower rates of the virus than the UK, where the highly contagious Delta variant is driving a surge in infections. The French tourist industry has rejected this resolution.
I think it's a disaster. I think they should stop this whole thing. It's ridiculous now. We've got to live with the virus. We've got to learn it's a new thing. It's not going to go away.
Disappointing because I'm double vaccinated and I thought that as of Monday it would be alright and I'd be able to come back and not have to self-isolate.
Catalan firefighters have battled to contain a wildfire at the National Park of Cap Cruz in Girona, 2 hours away from Barcelona. Local media reported that 200 people have to be evacuated from their houses as flames approach residential areas. The area is a natural paradise attracting many tourists, especially during the summer. According to regional authorities, over 400 hectares have already been lost to the wildfire.
This morning, we went to the market of Porto de la Selva. We finished shopping, then we went to have something to drink as usual. And when we were having coffee, we began seeing the smoke around 1 o'clock, and we saw the helicopters with the water. This morning, when we were at the beach, we saw a bit of smoke and then just smoke from the left and right. Since 1 o'clock and until now, totally out of control.
The world's top oil producers have agreed to boost output from August 2021. The Vienna-based group OPEC issued a statement after a meeting announcing that they had agreed to raise output by 4,000 barrels per day each month starting in August. To help the global economic recovery as the pandemic eases, the group also said it will set ACE's market developments in December, and the deal also extends a deadline of keeping output from April 2022 to the end of that year.
So yes, we will keep the 400 on a monthly basis. We will review in December. We kept our window open for review.
More story coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. At least 13 people have been killed and many others seriously burned after a fuel tanker exploded in western Kenya. The incident happened while residents of Malagang village in Kenya's island country were extracting fuel from the tanker after it was involved in an accident. This tragic event is the first one to happen in Kenya in 29, and at least 120 people were killed after a huge crowd descended on an overturned gasoline tanker which then blew up.
The fire was so huge. We couldn't go any closer, and there was the first lot who succeeded by fetching the fuel. Those who came second in the lot are the ones who died there. There are motorbike riders, women, and children.
The Rwandan capital, Kigali, has been placed under a 15-day lockdown as the country battles the second wave of coronavirus. The country's health officials have announced that all movements outside homes in the capital will now require an approved permit from the police, except for essential service providers. Rwanda's hospitals have been overwhelmed with recent COVID-19 cases and are faced with a critical shortage of beds and medicines. The new restrictions will at least until July 76.
During these 10 days, what we are going to do is fight strongly for ourselves, even if the living situation will be bad. But we have to accept the change and protect ourselves, like washing our hands, wearing a mask, observing a social distancing. When those 10 days are done, we will go back to normal.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has issued a warning to investigators of a recent violence and looting as he joined post-riot clean-up efforts. The African leader vowed his government was going to strengthen security to avoid racial conflicts after days of unrest which saw several shops being violently looted. South Africa was gripped by more than a week of chaos and violence broke out after the former president Jacob Zuma was jailed for contempt of corruption commissions. More than 200 people were killed as looters attacked shopping centers and touched the industrial infrastructure as well as local trade routers.
We are all really concerned about what happened here. But we are also saying we have learned valuable lessons. We have learned important lessons. The most important lesson of which in the end, we must tighten up our security forces, but we must also ensure that the defense of our democracy is firmly in the hands of our people.
Portuguese-speaking countries have expressed concern over the recent deadly Mozambique insurgency. Members of the community of the Portuguese-speaking countries have condemned violent attacks which left thousands deaths and many families displaced in Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province. The heads of the state were meeting in Angolan capital Luanda, where the African country took over the organization's rotating presidency from the Cape Verde.
We condemn what is happening in Mozambique, the unqualified attacks, human and social sacrifices, but we need a joint action, whether from Africa or European countries. The CPLP has a key role to play.
Afghanistan security forces have claimed they managed to recapture 24 districts that had been seized by Taliban in the past days as fighting between the two sides continues. Addressing to the media on the security situation in the country, a spokesperson for the Afghan Armed Forces General Abhal Omar Sinwari said they have retaken several districts which fell into the hands of Taliban fighters last week. The Army General called for permanently ceasefire to the conflict, but emphasized that the troops were ready for both peace or war.
The people of Afghanistan permanently demand a ceasefire, but the security forces are ready for peace and war. We are ready to defend our people. A large number of the districts have been recaptured by the security forces. The total number of recaptured districts is 24.
The latest talks between Afghan and Taliban representatives in Qatar has ended without any significant agreement. The delegates who met in a Qatar capital, Doha, ended the two-day meeting without reaching any positive conclusion. The team has agreed to meet yet again and resume the talks next week. They had a portrayal consensus to prevent civilians casualties in the ongoing conflict, but without mentioning a ceasefire to effectively stop the ongoing fighting.
I would have expected the war to end tonight when it happened, but we had good, fruitful discussions. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
We have come to the end of this new brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at TeleSUR.net. And join us on social media for TeleSUR English. I am Denise Herrera, and thank you for watching.